Hi, and welcome to this week's Hopeful Conversations. I am Vicky Montague, and I'm joined today by Tina Gibbons. Now, Tina is someone that I haven't known for very long, much like many of the guests that I've had so far. Um, Tina, I met when we started a holistic health course with Rachel and Ian, who are also on the podcast. Um, so that was like, when did we start? Was it September? I think it was, wasn't it? Was it October? I can't even remember. September. August. Oh, I don't know. At some point, we met on the course, and Tina one week or one of the sessions that we had, Tina was talking of her journey with health, and it really touched me. And I just thought, actually, you're the most perfect person to come and have a chat with, to help people see. Again, the whole point in these hopeful conversations in this series is to help people to see that they may be diagnosed with a health condition, but it's not fixed and firm and there forever, and that it can evolve, and our relationship can evolve, and things can look very different from one moment to the next. And when you were talking, it just, I there was something about what you shared that just made me think, gosh, there's so much hope in that. So I hand over to you to, to tell the listeners a little bit about what you were diagnosed with, and where your journey's gone, and kind of where you're at now. And yeah, that would be really interesting, I think.
Lovely.
I've,
Thank
oh,
you.
I've lost you. Hang on a sec. I've lost your audio. Right, let's try again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
No, it's really quiet. It's gone really quiet, which is bizarre because
Don't
we were only
worry.
just talking.
Yeah. How does it sound if I talking and talking?
It's like you're in a
Right.
in some kind of goldfish bowl.
Has
Ah, okay.
it come back?
It has come back.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll hand over to you to,
Right.
hopefully the sound will stay, and yeah, if you can just share a little bit about your journey, that would be amazing.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you, Vicky. Um, Thank you for inviting me. It's really beautiful to be part of a hopeful conversation, because a long time ago, I've been on this journey for over 20 years now, and after I'd got myself in a better place, and I'll talk a little bit more about my journey in a second, but I was reflecting on the fact that, I had made this journey and I was in a much better place than I ever thought I would be. And I could see that there were other people that had also, done a similar journey to me and were in much better places, but there also were a lot of people that were stuck.
Yeah.
And I wondered deeply, what was it that enabled me to take this journey, that enables others to take this journey,
Mm.
but some people were stuck. And one of the things that I came to was that I had hope, that there was something more beyond this point.
Yeah.
And it was that hope that I was saying, well, if I could only bottle hope and
Yeah.
dish it out to everybody, the world
Exactly.
would be a better place.
Absolutely. Which is exactly what I thought with this series. I just felt at the moment, particularly, there's so much feeling of no hope. Um, and as you
Yes.
say, when you get stuck in that place, and it's very difficult to see anything else.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so I've been on a long journey since feeling better to try and spread hope and share hope and inspire hope and activate hope in people and largely the best way I knew to do that was to share my story and talk to people and share information so that people had access, and awareness to things that might take them to a better place. So It's lovely to be now invited into a hopeful conversation.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, it's
Um,
lovely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, oh dear, I don't even know when I could say that this journey began. You know, the circumstances that I perhaps chose to be born into, whatever your belief is about birth. Um, and I guess through much of my childhood, there were various kind of emotional, mental challenges that I faced, as everybody does growing up, and different family dynamics going on that had different effects on me. Um, and then, you know, kind of later in life, when I was in my 20s, I think it really, late teens, early 20s, I really started to feel deeply confused about life, deeply confused about who I was. And my moods would fluctuate quite a lot. So sometimes I would feel really sad and flat and, you know, empty and I guess depressed. But other times I have this real, I guess, extrovert energy about me. I can appear really confident. I can look really happy. Um, you know, I spent many years practicing as a performer on roller skates, which is another story. But
Wow.
I think it gave me an ability to have like a kind of a presence that might not have been an authentic expression of what I was feeling inside. And sometimes I would become that person, but other times I just couldn't. Um, so, you know, I spent many years feeling fluctuating between these moods um, quite noticeably for me,
Yeah.
really. And sometimes when I was in a really depressed place, you know, it could be, I could be crying my own for nights at home. I was living on my own. But to cut the long story short, eventually, one year I decided, in my infinite wisdom, to change my whole life in a very short period of time. And I guess this was a response. This was me trying to kind of get out of this and find some meaning in my life. So I had a career, and I've been working for the same company for 8 years. I had a boyfriend that I've been with for 5 years. I had my own flat in a city that I'd lived in for a few years too. And I decided that it would be good to go to university as a mature student. Um, I also decided that I didn't want to be in that relationship anymore, and the university was in a different city. So
Wow.
everything that had been my anchor and my stability up to that point, I kind of severed really at the seams and extracted myself into a new life. And I think it's important that I mention that because I think that made me really unstable. In hindsight, I changed a lot of things in a very short period of time. And I found myself in Edinburgh, at Edinburgh University, in a flat with other amazing European women who had completely different cultural backgrounds to me. So even when I was studying anthropology, sociology, and economics, and it just I changed my whole life, and I also threw all of my firmly held beliefs about what reality was up into the air as well. And I guess it kind of culminated in a long period of no sleep, which then led to some quite disturbing experiences of psychosis.
Wow.
Um, that led to me going to hospital and being diagnosed. I wasn't sectioned. I just visited. I was there for a diagnosis. I was given prescription, and then I was sent home. And at this point, I'd come back to live with my parents. And then I was kind of stabilised on medication with a diagnosis of potential bipolar disorder. Um, And I was stable enough really on the medication that calmed my mind down, it calmed my moods down, it brought me back to a steady level, and I carried on like that for a few years. And I was never really bad enough to get any extra help under the way the health system operated at the time. I was never really ill enough to warrant extra care from anybody. But for me, I wasn't really well enough either. I still had a real undercurrent of discontent, dissatisfaction, not understanding what had happened to me, not wanting to subscribe to this existence forever. And so I spoke to my psychiatrist at the time about the possibility of starting to work with a psychologist within the NHS, because I'd done some research at the time and kind of realised that there was a difference between the way psychiatrists and psychologists work. CBT was quite new at the time, really, and there wasn't the same counselling referral system that they have today. And he kind of said that the system didn't really work like that, and that if I looked to come off medication, there was a high chance I would relapse, and so maybe I just ought to sort of accept it as it was, really, which mortified me. And I walked out on that day, and I never went back to the hospital, and I haven't revisited my psychiatrist ever since. And that was over 20 years ago. What I would say is that I very quickly put another support system in place. I knew that this was more important than anything else in my life. I was working at the time because I was stable enough to work. So, and I could afford to go out and buy clothes. So I thought, well, if I can afford to go out and buy clothes, I can afford to pay for all the counselling I need to get through this. And so I found an amazing counsellor, psychotherapist, who I saw twice a week. I made it, my highest priority to sort this out. I was determined I wanted to come out of this in differently.
Had you stopped medication at that point, or did you carry on taking the meds?
No.
Yeah.
No. So I think that's what I really wanted to emphasize, because what I did is I went to my GP, and I found out who was the most approachable within my GP surgery around mental health and also perhaps natural approaches to things. And I made an appointment with her, and I said, look, this is what's happened. I've got this psychotherapist in place that I'm seeing twice a week. I want to try and come off this medication, but I want to do it safely. And I worked with my psychotherapist, with the GP, and with my boss at work to go through coming off of the medication in a safe and supported way, really. And that didn't happen straight away. I carried on with the medication for a while before I felt like, okay, right, I think I'm ready to reduce it a little bit. And I went to the GP and we reduced it in stages, and that way I gradually came off of the medication. I haven't been on medication for my mental health since then, and that I lose count of the years, but I know it's been over 15 years.
What, just
and
out of
since
interest?
Then I've
Sorry, I was going to say, out of interest, what medication were you on at that point? What had the psychiatrist actually given?
So I was on, again, my memory gets a bit loose with this information, but I was on sodium valproate a lot of the time, and I know I was on Prozac as well. Sodium valproate is an anti-epilepsy drug, isn't it? And I think it's a mood stabilizer,
right,
as well. So I think they use it for both. So it wasn't, I think at the time the stronger medication was lithium, and I was on Risperdal for a while as well, because to calm the psychosis when it first came on. But yeah, I guess I've not really I haven't really entered the world of medication to become overly familiar with all the names of different medications, but I know that my main one was sodium valproate.
Yeah.
Well, it was fluoxetine, is that yeah.
Right. So quite a concoction. You were at that stage when you started to see the psychotherapist. You were actually taking quite a lot of meds um, sort of control your mood, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I guess what they actually did is it just sort of kept me a bit flat, really.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was yeah, it wasn't something that I felt I could just stop on my own.
No.
And I don't think, even if it had just been the Prozac, or it had, even if it hadn't been such a concoction, I still don't think I would have felt safe if I hadn't had some kind of medical support to reduce those. So it was just a case of hunting out the professional that would be able to support me with what I wanted to do for my health, really, rather than just working with the one that was presented to me and
Yeah.
taking that opinion as said.
And I think that's a really important point, isn't it? Because when it comes to your health, we do we can take control of that. We often think that, okay, we go and see a GP, and that GP says some, whatever, prescribes whatever, and that's set in stone. But I think what's really interesting in what you're saying is to to really sort of, if you don't feel comfortable with somebody, you're well within your rights to then find somebody else, to find the person that you do feel comfortable with, that you feel is able to support what it is you want to do. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have, and I think there are
Your sound has
there is
dipped.
such deep variation. Oh,
It's all right, it's back.
am I back again
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
There is a big variation from GP to GP, from psychiatrist to psychiatrist, especially in the arena of mental health, I think. So yeah, I think that would be my biggest takeaway from that, really, was that if you don't feel within yourself that you can at ease with what you're being told, to seek another opinion, really, and to see whether, and to just go on a bit of an exploration, to see. I think the other big turning point for me was when I made the decision that this was something that I valued, this was something that was important to me, and I was going to pay for this. Actually, I could prioritize this above normal life, and actually I would put every spare piece of cash I could into sorting out how I was, my understanding of this and how I was feeling about all of this, rather than, because I did later complain to the hospital and they offered me CBT, which was coming out at the time, but I didn't want CBT because that felt too prescriptive for me, and I really needed a much more open field to explore, really, and allow things to unfold. And so a kind of a sort of a fixed program really didn't appeal to me at all. That felt really restrictive. But I do think there are lots of different offers of help out there, and some of them we have to pay for them, and I do think that there is sometimes, if we can afford something, there is value in making that payment, because you're telling yourself in some
Yes.
ways that you're worth it.
Yeah.
And that in itself, I think, is quite a turning point.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I can
Certainly
see
for
that.
me.
That's kind of, rather than just kind of being, it's that it's taking control again, isn't it? It's taking back your own well-being, rather than just going with the flow of, right, this is what we think is best for you, this is what you need to do. It's like, like you saying you felt that CBT was too prescriptive. You could have just done it because it was being offered and it was free, but to actually really tune into what it is that would be helpful for you. And as you say, if you can afford to find the right person, then that really, I can see how empowering that is.
And it's amazing looking back how
Oh, hang
clear
on.
it was for me. I mean, the CBT, I felt, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
I felt my whole body tense up at the idea of CBT. It was clear to me that I didn't want to do that for some reason. Um, you know, uh, the difficulty that I had was that quite often my taking my power back also felt to me as though that could be a symptom of my illness. It's quite hard to explain, but one of the symptoms of bipolar disorder is delusions and ideas of grandiose, thinking that you're something amazing, that you're not like Christ reborn, or something like that. So for a long time I felt, and still, that's something I have to check in with. It's like permission to trust myself, and it's almost as though sometimes trusting myself was a symptom of the illness. So like, for example, when I saw my psychiatrist and said, oh, I think you can do this differently, and surely I can work with psychologists as well and not just be seeing a psychiatrist and getting medication, and my particular psychiatrist at that time really made me feel belittled for thinking that that was the case. And a part of me felt as though that was a delusional idea, that I could possibly think that I could possibly know more about my health than the psychiatrist in front of me was delusional.
Yeah.
Really. So it took a lot of unpicking for me to think that it's okay for me to trust that I might know more about my health than an expert sitting in front of me. It's a really, yeah.
It's a really tricky one, isn't it? And I completely understand that. It's because we have experts that we go to see about our health. It's we can easily fall into that kind of, well, they know best for me. And actually,
Mm.
that's not necessarily the case. Like, nobody can know more than you about you. That's the thing to always remember, isn't it? It's like, I remember when I had my children and my daughter was really not well. There was something not right, and I knew there was something not right. And I kept going to the doctors, and they kept telling me, "Oh, it's nothing. She's fine. New mum syndrome. Just disappear and get on with it." And part of me was wanting to believe that, but there was a part of me that knew that that wasn't true. That there was something that just kept niggling. It's almost like it kept coming back. I kept going to the GP, and they kept telling me she was fine, sending me home, and I'd kind of be okay with that for a bit, and then I'd be like, no, there's definitely something. And I think it's that, isn't it? It's like, if something keeps coming back as, something really isn't right, or something really could be done about this. I think if it just keeps coming back, it's kind of, it's the sign that's telling you, no, actually, you know best. There's definitely something going on.
Yeah. And I think, also, trying to find a health
We've lost
professional,
you. We've lost you a
uh,
bit again on the sound. Why?
talking and seeing if I just come back.
There
Have
you
I
go.
come
I'm
back
back. Yeah,
now?
back. Yeah,
I'm back.
yeah.
um, and working with a health professional, seeing if you can find a health professional who's going to work with you. So, who's going to explore it with you, if you and understand that if you're not at ease with this, then maybe there is something else to look at. So I know when I said that I didn't have medication since coming off, that's not strictly true, because there were times along my journey over the next few years where I was very anxious about there being a relapse,
Yeah.
because there'd be various trigger points, and I could see, I knew what my pattern was at this point, and so I knew that I know that like insomnia is a big trigger point for me. So if I go 2 or 3 nights, if it gets to the point where I'm not sleeping at all, then that for me is a stress point because that was the beginning of my breakdown, breakthrough, whatever you want to call it. And so at one stage in my journey, when I was in that anxious place, I went back to my GP, and I don't think I actually saw the same GP that had helped me to come off medication, but obviously all my notes were there then. And I just sat down and I said my story. I said where I'd come from, and I said what I would like to do now. I think that if I can just get some sleep, I will be okay. You know, I just need to kind of reset. So are you able to support me with something to just help me sleep for now in the short term? Which that GP was happy to do. And, you know, that was just something I had to go back and obviously make sure that I wasn't using that medication on a regular basis and different things like that. But that was it. He said, you know, I'm sure it was a he at the time, said that sounds like a very sensible course of action to me. Yeah, I'll do that. Come back in a week and we'll see how you are. And that's what I did, and that was fine. And then my next journey was okay, so I need to learn how to deal with insomnia. I need to learn, you know, if I get to this point, how can I work with insomnia without medication? What natural things can I do to help me improve my sleep, and, you know, different things like that. And that's kind of where my journey for 20 years has been, is like, what tools are there? How can I work with this to manage my emotional well-being, and you know, make sure that I don't reach that place again. Yeah, and I found loads of amazing tools, and it's been a beautiful journey of unfolding and becoming, actually, and, you know, uncovering who I am and who we all are, and, you know, lots of amazing things. And it's become my life, looking at how we can look after our health and our emotional well-being in particular. So
it's amazing, isn't it, how something that on the face of it, when, you know, I'm sure when you had that diagnosis, when you were going through the you know, the initial kind of awful period, that you would never have thought that would be something positive. But to see that it, although at the time it wasn't at all, looking back on it now, you know, you're a completely different person almost, having been through that.
I am a completely different person. Yeah, I mean, I think I feel largely as though I spent a large part of my life asleep, really. And I often look back at as this as a breakthrough, as an awakening, as you know, a whole host of things like that. And yeah, it's I often refer to that as my previous life, really.
Yeah.
And it certainly was a gift. You know, I would not be without it. It's gifted me with so much insight and so much wisdom. Yeah, I think one of the biggest one thing that I really did want to mention on this interview as well, because it was such a moment of, oh, thank goodness, was when I was sitting with my psychotherapist once, and we'd been through my journey, my life, and my stories, and everything. And I think I said to her something along the lines of, so what do you think then? Do you think I have bipolar disorder? Do you think I have this lifelong condition that I have to live with and everything? And she just said, well, you know, based on everything that you've told me about your life so far, I think it's sort of perfectly understandable that you have responded in this way. You know, I think this is a normal, you know, people respond in different ways to these situations, but there was a real understanding when we looked at my journey and when we uncovered everything. It's like, oh, well, you know, of course, even in my psychosis, there was like, I could see how my reality as a child was playing out through my psychosis. There was like a real understanding that actually this was quite understandable. It wasn't illogical.
Yeah.
I could even grasp it on a logical basis when I went through. And I just think that that's amazing, that I could have been stuck at this point of not understanding, but it just took one person whose opinions I held as that I could trust, to say, well, no, that sounds like, yeah, who wouldn't react like that in the end, you know? Of course, that's going to create this sort of situation within you. And if you haven't got the tools to deal with that, or the support around you to deal with that at the time, this is how it can manifest in a human being. And that's okay.
I think
You
that's
know?
really beautiful, because it's that it points back to that whole thing of that you're not broken. Like,
No,
all of that happened. It wasn't because there was something wrong with you. It was happening because it needed to happen in response to what had happened. It was like, it wasn't your body malfunctioning. It was just behaving
no.
how it needed to behave in response to the environment that it had been put in,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that there's
Um,
no blame in that, because there's the tendency then is to go, oh god, if it was all my fault, or or blame that person because they created this, whatever experience for me, or but just to kind of see that it's just your body reacting.
mm, yeah, and I think there was it would have been also been impossible to blame one person, because there were so many different interactions and environments that contributed to this. The decision to kind of like get rid of everything stable in my life at the same time and throw myself into anthropology and sociology certainly was my decision that created this. It kind of cracked me open, really, to for this to surface. And I think I'm really interested in the amount of children, or youth, if you like, that do experience quite serious mental health conditions when they go to university, because I do think that there is an element of our ego, our identity breaking down when we go to university. And within that, I think that creates a really ripe environment for things to come to the surface and to manifest in different ways. And there's no blame in that. They're all my own decisions. And I'm grateful for for them now anyway. Um,
Going back to, I mean, you may not know, you may not know, you just may not be able to answer, but I'm just really intrigued, because it seemed like there was always a kind of thread going through, that you weren't happy with where you were. Like, you kind of knew that there was something more to life than what you had. And I guess, you going to the
mm,
psychiatrist and saying, well, what about seeing a psychologist? Like, that was your kind of attempt at trying to find that better way of being for yourself. But, and like I say, you may not be able to answer it, but I'm so intrigued as to, what is it that allowed you to have that hope in you, that there was something in you that said, no, this isn't my lot, I don't deserve this, there's more to life.
mm, yeah, and I think one of the things that's coming to me at the moment is I must have a stubbornness, um, a determination, and a sense of some sort of personal power. Um, and I'm grateful to have those, to have been kind of gifted with those qualities, I guess. And how do we? I'm really interested in how we can, and this is why I think it's really important to learn how we can bring these. I think we all have this within us, but it's how can we awaken the hope within other people? How can we awaken the sense of personal power? How can we awaken the drive and the determination? Because I think it is all within all of us.
Yeah.
It's just a case of whether it's been awoken or not. And now I work a lot, you know, with flower essences, and for me, they have been amazing for that. So with psychotherapy and counselling, I achieved so much with my well-being. Medication even offered me stability and security and a safe platform to work from. Counselling and psychotherapy was amazing for developing an understanding and gaining insights as to what had happened to me. But then there was still more. I was still stuck.
Yeah.
I would revisit things within counselling, and I'd still be experiencing triggers in different ways that I was struggling to manage with, and I got tired. I felt like I was, you know, I'd often feel like I could be going around in circles. And flower essences work on a vibrational, you know, approach, so they kind of resonate within you and awaken a vibration within you. And so I thought I would try some flower essences, and something that I was stuck with shifted, like quite noticeably when I started working with flower essences, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I carried on playing with flower essences because they're easy to play with, while continuing counselling. And it just reached a point where I said to my counsellor, you know, I think I'm going to stop because I just want to play with the essences.
Wow.
And go on this journey now with the essences myself. You know, and that's what, and that has been another layer of unfolding, for me, that then led me to building my connection with nature much more deeply. And now I work a lot with nature connection as well. And it's like once I kind of stepped into this land of nature connection, and it's like a light bulb came on, and I've found where I belong. It's kind of like, oh, you know, I've arrived home
That's where it
now.
was.
Now that I feel that's where it was, that's where it's going. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, I've been you know, it's such a long journey, and it's just like it was just in the woods all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it was just in nature. It was just, realizing that, you know, we are part of this natural, web of life, and that we belong here, and you know, we can be at home here. And it was just like, oh, okay, you know. So and that's kind of where I am now. So now I largely work, as a nature connection guide and flower essence practitioner, because they were the things that kind of pulled it all together at the end for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, led me to people like Rachel and yourself, and Ian, and landed me here.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, just sort of pulling it all together for me, there's a theme throughout that whole thing, which is trust. It's like, you know, there was something in you that you did trust that would, um, you know, that would guide you, that would tell you the next step, that was there really strongly, kind of telling you, no, you're not there yet. There's somewhere, there's more to see. There's more in life to see. And I think so many of us get caught in the, oh, you know, I'm not happy with where I am in life, but I don't know what to do about it. And I think it's just that, you know, the more we can connect into that, I'm not happy. What is there for me to see? Where, you know, what can I do, rather than just accepting life as it is, but to kind of trust that if there's a dissatisfaction there, that there is more, and that you've got a guide within you that will show you the way to whatever it is. Like for you, it was nature and flower essences, but that's not going to be the same for other people. But we all have we all have that inner guidance that once we start to tap into, it's like, I like describing it as the, you know, when we're driving along a dark road, we've just got the street, you know, we've got our headlights that's lighting up the tiny bit of road in front of us. And it's almost like that's all we ever need to know, is that little bit in front of us. We kind of might want to have a destination in mind. Like for you, you knew that there was something better than where you were, but you didn't know what that looked like. It was still in the dark, but as you focused on that, the lights enabled you to move forward a little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. And you know, it's like when we're open to that, the idea that we will just know, things will be presented in front of us once we're open.
And as you're saying all of that, I'm just I'm smiling to myself, because I did so much traveling on this journey as well, because of course, you know, the answer's out there somewhere, isn't it? You know, and I've changed so many relationships, if you like, and jobs, and, you know, all of these things out there. But actually, you know, it's when I came home to myself, really, that none of those things don't bring me the happiness now. And so, you know, now I really feel like I have this within me to access this place of peacefulness and bliss sometimes within me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get stressed and angry like everybody, but I kind of have this default that I can return to. There is a beautiful place within me of bliss and peacefulness. And so, whilst on this really long journey, it was actually just coming home to myself that I was trying to do. You know, and it's amazing. It's quite a paradox, really. I remember I had a friend when I was a boyfriend, or I wanted him to be a boyfriend when I was younger, and he was like, "No, Tina, you know, you're going somewhere and I'm just staying here." And I'm like, "Well, where am I going?" What? I was obviously going doing, you know. But so this, I love that you brought out this thread, because I hadn't really quite even, you know, grasp that myself. But yeah, it was like there was this constant knowing that there was somewhere that I was trying to go, and I looked at everywhere for it and
Outside.
eventually found it in myself.
Yeah.
Outside, in the woods.
Yeah, I
but
love
in
that.
myself.
Yeah. But the guide, it was always there inside you, the knowing of what to do next, and it's always inside all of us, but we just dismiss it and kind of look in the other direction, like you say, to try and change the things outside of us. But actually within us is that knowing of what to do next. Wow. Well, that seems like a perfect place to end. But I'm really grateful for you coming and sharing your experiences. I know it's going to help a lot of people. Oh no, we've lost your sound again.
Feels inspired. Oh,
There you go, you're back.
am I back again?
Yeah.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest motivation about having these conversations, isn't it? If just one nugget of inspiration or hope lands with just one person,
Yeah.
and it's all worthwhile, isn't it?
Yeah. And so for anyone listening that would
Thank
love to
you
know
for having
more,
me.
oh no, it's been lovely having you. If there's anyone listening who'd like to know more about flower essences and the nature work that you do, how can people contact you and find out more about you?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page. I'm more active on Facebook at the moment. So it's it's under my name, Tina Gibbons, Nature Connection Guide and Flower Essence Therapist. I do have a website, but I need to update it. It's not updated, but it's Tina Gibbons, and I think it's .co.uk. It could be .com. I'm not sure. So they're there, and I do regular courses on nature connection, where we just work in a small group, and I bring all of the well-being journey that I've been on into this nature connection journey, really. So they're you know, that's all set up and ready for people to access.
Wow, sounds wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, so Facebook probably is the best place to contact you, but I will drop all the links and
Yeah,
everything down below here anyway,
yeah.
so
Okay,
people can
lovely.
find them. Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you very much, Tina, and I will see you again very soon. Take care.
Thank you, Vicky.
Bye.